This is happening to him because he attracts villains from all over the continent. He said with a heavy sigh that it would be better for him to think about it later. For now, it would be better to focus on the original plan. After some time in the city, the protagonist thought that it was time to reap the benefits of his research. The principle of controlling the essence by spreading black magic is simple. His eyes and ears will be everywhere. They can even cover a place like Seoul with ease. He thought, using the familiar size, they have already arrived? So this is the first signal, the girl said in fear, with tears in her eyes, begging him to spare her. It would be easy for her to do anything if he let her go. She screamed, noticing the guy in the window and turning to him, that she needed help. She was being held here by force. Couldn't he hear her? Why was he leaving? The man with the knife said, grabbing her hair with his hand, that it was useless. Let her scream as much as she wanted. Because it didn't matter how loud she screamed. He had an ability that would make them invisible. Only he would hear her screams and suffering. He said, pulling her hair with his hand, that she needed to scream louder. She had a cute voice. The man with the knife shouted, preparing to hit her with the weapon, that she would be among the top 3 in his collection. Hans broke through the ceiling with his dark magic. The man with the knife asked in surprise, how could such a thing happen there? He asked, his ability is sound suppression and invisibility, right? The protagonist said, looking at him angrily, that it wouldn't work on him. His disgusting deeds would end today. The man with the knife asked, angry, who was he? Was he a guardian? How did he even get here? He said, holding the weapon to the woman's throat, that he was warning him. If he dared to come closer to him, she would die. Sung Hyun asked, activating dark magic, could this really be true? He asked, snatching the woman from him and taking her into his hands, and now what would he do? The man with the knife asked in surprise, so he was a returnee? He asked, angry, how dare he steal his prey? Now he would kill her along with him. The man with the knife pounced on the protagonist, but was suddenly grabbed by dark energy. The protagonist said that, judging by his conversation, this was not his first victim. He asked while binding him with dark energy and touching his forehead with his fingers, he doesn't mind if he checks it himself, does he? Sung Hyun, using the identity of Hans, used necromancy magic and activated the skill. Cry of the Dead. He saw his memories where he tortured his victims before killing them. The protagonist said that he is a serial killer, so he doesn't even need to look further. He sentences him to death. The man with the knife screamed in agony due to the pain of using dark magic on him. Sung Hyun said that even death would be too merciful to him. However, he still needs an undead to command on Earth. His enemy is the perfect option. He doesn't mind at all if he turns him into a servant, right? He said using his ability that this is a cruel method that involves sucking blood from the body, so he didn't expect that he would be able to create him so soon. A system window popped up that a pumped undead named Gast was created. The protagonist said that he needed to go to the subspace portal. He would definitely need it later. The protagonist said, looking at the unconscious woman, that now he had to decide what to do with her. Maybe he should clean up before leaving? It would be better for him to just call the emergency services. After a while, police officers gathered on the street, who did not allow people to enter the scene. Park Han-chul, the leader of the Criminal Investigation Department team from the Special Ops Bureau, looked thoughtfully at the window. The man in the suit said, turning to him, that they confirmed the footage from the scene. This is definitely the serial killer they could not catch. Han-chul asked, looking irritated, is the person who killed the criminal a returnee? The man in the suit said that they were able to confirm it. However, they cannot find the body, but a huge amount of dark magic was used and traces of blood were found at the crime scene. Someone worthy of death definitely died here. However, this case is a real nightmare. Han-chul asked, is he just joking? Getting drunk on power and playing the hero, that's what it really looks like. And such people are very dangerous. What do they think the law is for? The protagonist said, standing on the roof, that the executions had been successful. A civilian on the street asked, looking at the roof, is that a sleepwalker up there? Who is he anyway? Hans said, petting the cat, that he wanted to see his face at least once. After some time, at the association that repatriates South Korean citizens, Seoul South Branch, the secretary said that she was calling the branch manager. Let her excuse her, but she needs to come in for a minute. Let her wake up, Yoon Ji-yoon. She has a very important matter to ask her. Let her get ready. Yoon Ji-yoon raised her not quite sober head and asked what time it was. What happened there? She stretched out her hands to the papers and said that the Special Ops Bureau sent them a request for cooperation. She looked at the papers and asked, "Is this a case about the arrest of 3 jewel thieves? Is this case related to the recent murder?" She thought that the same dark mage was wearing a long coat and a mask. She put the tablet on her head and said that the public security situation is complicated. They are not sending them reinforcements. She almost handed this case over to that guy. The secretary was very surprised and asked what she just said. "That idiot is a murderer." She found someone to hand this over to. She rebelled and threw her fists up sharply. She said that's exactly what she said, he's capable, so if they tame him, he'll make a great dog. The secretary got an unhappy pose and asked, "Can't he join them as guardians?" She knows very well that she's busy with work, but maybe it will work out. Let her stop talking nonsense and get back to work. She started to aggressively tap her finger on the documents, and hinted that she should see this huge stack of documents. Ji-Yun looked at this with displeasure and remained silent. A few moments later, she slammed the table, causing the documents to fly apart. She screamed that she wanted to tear these damn villains to pieces. After a while, the protagonist stood by the window and warmed up. He said with a satisfied face that destroying the villains brings him pleasure. He thought that if it is not a serial killer, he stops at saturating the curse of terror and punishes them accordingly. He thinks this is very small. He looked carefully at the city street and said that later, soon he would have to take a look at these guys. The organization of villains was causing complete chaos. Okay, and now that he had more or less figured it out, maybe he should pay attention to the other world? After a while in the other world, Uncle Diana and Aaron were screaming their names in tears. The children ran up to him and started hugging. He said that they had been through so much. They had worked so hard. The children were screaming and saying that they were fine. Heinz looked at this with a smile and thought that he was very happy. He seemed like a very nice person. If he had acted in any suspicious way, he might have had to resort to threats, but that did not seem necessary. Their uncle took his hand and thanked him heartily for bringing the children to him. Heinz started waving his hand and said that he had not really done anything, but it had to happen. Diana came up to him and said that she was very grateful to him for all that time together. She hugged him and screamed that she was very happy. He stroked her head and said that they were not parting forever, he would visit them often. And now they should behave well and be healthy. She continued to cry and said that she was a little worried because it seemed to her that he was changing a lot, but she was calmed by the fact that she knew that he was a very good person. He asked fearfully, "Is he really changing?" He thought maybe it is the influence of the persona skill. Hans is a mixture of negative emotions. He wants to gain recognition, and in other words, he is an attempt to attract attention. And he is focused on intrigue and lies. It seems that he got a calm and stable character. Diana looked at him sadly and asked where he went now. He said that he will take advantage of all opportunities and go on a pilgrimage. After some time in the capital of the kingdom of Talia, Talaria. There is only one reason why Heinz came there. Talaria leads the Church of the Goddess and is home to the largest temple in this land. He walked through the streets of this city and carefully examined everything around. He went into the gateway and said that no one should follow him there. He used his ability and began to summon the 4th avatar Heinrich. His common features are the center of the mind, persona, super regeneration, calm. A unique feature is the spirit of a warrior. He gets additional bonuses to skills and experience acquired through training and combat. Heinz handed him a bag and said that he does not really walk around the holy city in the body of a vampire. Therefore, he should take this and go into the light. After some time, Heinrich came to the elder with a bag. The old man sat on a chair, with his subordinates standing next to him. He said that the next believer could come up. Suddenly, Heinrich poured a pile of gold on him, which surprised the elder very much. He began to count and stack the coins on top of each other, after which he asked how much was there in total. Heinrich said that this was all his fortune. He put his hand on his heart and said that he wanted to dedicate everything to the goddess and become a paladin to fulfill her will. He thought that until now his avatars were the undead, the dark mage and the vampire. They are children of the vile darkness. However, this time his avatar will be a paladin respected by everyone. He will become a light paladin. The elder slammed his fist on the table, causing the coins to fly apart. Instructor Marco extended his hand to him and said that he was a very sincere young man. He would make an excellent paladin out of him. The old man was very surprised and told him to wait a little. After all, no matter how much he sacrificed, they cannot just take an unknown person as a paladin. Marco laughed heartily and told the other not to worry about it. Villains inevitably reveal their true nature during training. What does the recruit think? Will he have the courage to show them his true nature? Heinrich happily agreed with him. After some time of hard training, he began to scream that he really wanted to drink water. He tried to catch his breath, and sweat was pouring down his face. A huge iron ball flew at him, after which he thought, "What is this? This is madness." He stopped the ball with his strength and tensed all his muscles. He thought that exactly a month had passed since that moment he began the damned training. At first, he thought that the Paladin Order was noble and cool, but it turned out that they were just a group of macho perverts. All the paladins were training hard in that room and shouting words of encouragement. Heinrich continued to work hard. One of the paladins approached number 12, that he began to lose concentration. Did he probably forget about the rules? He can't stop praying during training. He lay down in front of his face and shouted that this was very good. He should concentrate and recite the prayers again. Number 12 diligently continued training and shouted that he accepted his order. He began to recite a prayer out loud. The coach shouted and encouraged him that he should concentrate more. Let him recite the prayers and restore his weak body. Number 12 raised the iron ball above himself and shouted the prayers. The coach praised him for his success. Heinrich looked at this from the side and thought that in an emergency, repeated prayers strengthen faith and increase divine power. He admits that it is quite productive and effective. Not far from them, two men were beating a third with sledgehammers. He shouted that his back feels great today. Let them beat him even harder. Another paladin stood and tried to break the spiked iron ball with his bicep. They all shouted about the goddess. That their faith is getting stronger. Heinrich looked at this and thought, do they really have to train like this? The trainer approached Marco on the second floor and asked if the new recruit he brought was a simpleton. Marco asked what if he was like that. The trainer said that even before the baptism, he lifted such a huge weight, his shoulders and lower body became invulnerably strong. He can't wait to see what the baptism will do to him. Heinrich heard this and thought that this was so disgusting. Why are they drooling over his body? He felt incredibly uncomfortable. He didn't want to attract attention in this perverted group. After some time, he continued to train hard, and during one of his training, he stood and tried to catch his breath. He thought that it had already been 3 months since he started training. If he didn't have a wind instrument and super regeneration skill, he would have been knocked out long ago. The body, the endurance have improved, but the most problematic thing is their perversions. Marco came up to him and grabbed his shoulder, after which he said that if he finished the lower body workout, how about doing some chest exercises together? He took off his shirt and started showing off in front of him, which caused Heinrich to start screaming in panic. The trainer approached them and asked, standing in a beautiful stance, if on such a beautiful day they should do a good back workout. Didn't he agree with him on this? Heinrich began to shake convulsively in disgust and tried to utter at least something. He thought that they were just muscle perverts. Why were they bothering him? After a while, Heinrich was sitting near the building with one of the paladins. He stretched his neck and said that he was seriously starting to go crazy. Not a day went by that they didn't invite him to train with them. The other one laughed and said that he thought it was because the elders had low expectations of themselves. He noticed that they passed by. The whole crowd was smiling and giggling among themselves. Suddenly, 2 people appeared from the building, the great Archbishop Lacius and Tuscan. They came out of the building and waved at the standing paladin. One of the lords said that they had reported that they needed to go on an expedition with the Fool and the Crusaders. When did they get back? Heinrich noticed one of the guys and thought, isn't that the paladin who was jabbing his sword at Hans? They had gone on an expedition and returned, but let them not say that this had happened. Had they really been looking for Hans all this time? After a while, the recruits had gathered in the building. An elder stood at the altar, who said that they had gathered there today so that the best of them could undergo the baptism ceremony. The ceremony was taking place earlier than usual. They had to bring it up due to special circumstances. They very much hoped for their understanding. It was now that the recruits needed to hear their names, and then take a step forward. One of the recruits asked why they were holding events that usually happened once every 6 months. Why now? Heinrich thought that he could only guess. Half of them were in desperate need of reinforcements now. To pursue the heir to the immortal king. In any case, this is a perfect opportunity to save time. Should he take the chance to test it? New use of the skills of the persona and the center of the mind. The elder called Max Verroen to him. He asked if he was ready to dedicate his entire life to God and live it as a paladin. The recruit answered that he was ready for it. Heinrich thought that those who accept baptism transfer all their mana to the deity, after which it becomes impossible to use magic. In response, the deity gives a blessing and endows with enormous sacred power. Each person receives a blessing of different powers, and the most important factor determining this is faith in the deity. The purer the true faith, the freer it is from lies and doubts, the stronger the paladin will become. The elder called the next recruit Heinrich. He walked towards the elders with a smile and thought that he was lucky to come up with such an idea to become complete. Until now, he had only used the center of the mind to suppress external stimuli or to restrain emotions. But he realized something during this time: it was possible to use this skill in reverse. The persona skill would allow him to create the appearance of believing in a god. Then, when the high priest extracted his mana, he would use the center of his mind to filter out the mistrust and doubt from his mana. His mana would become pure, without a trace of